Next on the College Rugby Wrap-Up is the gap in CRAA D1A narrowing. What big things are happening on the women's landscape? Is Colby Marshall the biggest homer in college rugby coverage? How did college stars fare this week in Major League Rugby? Zach Lanning, Colby Marshall, Josh Rescio, and Matt McCarthy answer those questions and more. Rugby Wrap-Up brought to you in part by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, the world's best rugby pump. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle. Hey everybody, and welcome back to this week's College Rugby Wrap-Up. Thank you for joining us. Matt McCarthy in New York City, Colby Marshall all kitted up to go play out in New Jersey, and our maniac, Zach Lanning, up in Maine. Guys, let's skip the pleasantries because we got a full slate and we want to get it right soup to nuts. So, Zach, you caught up with Josh, who was too cool to be with us in the studio today. So let's go to that first.
All right, we are here with you, Josh Rescio, the international man of mystery. I'm glad that we could finally catch up with you, get your segment taped here for the show. Always love hearing from you about the action on the men's side of the CRAA. What do you got for us this week, Josh?
Yeah, I know. I wish I could be back with the whole group of you guys, but hopefully next week I'll be back again. But still, I mean, we are really getting into some exciting rugby, and doesn't matter if it's close, but the matchups that we're having are kind of the ones that you definitely going to see on the headlines. So let's go ahead and start out in the Mid-South. Lindenwood, after that great win over Life, a game that really kind of sets the pace for them to maintain that top 5 ranking, was able to take on Arkansas State 25-0. Very clean game, very great defensive game for Lindenwood. Every time Arkansas State had an opportunity to kind of maybe start to get a try or start to gain some momentum, Lindenwood really kind of starved them of those opportunities. So that's a really quality win to come off of a tough win over Life. So, kudos to Lindenwood. It's going to be really exciting to see them continue playing. And as we get into the playoffs, when they start to play some of these West Coast teams that we also have going on right now.
So we haven't talked about Arkansas State yet on the show, Josh. Where do you think they fit in to the hierarchy in those college rugby programs out on the West Coast?
From my knowledge, right, Arkansas State, from a recruiting perspective, has definitely brought in a lot of great people to kind of solidify a strong roster that can take on these teams like Lindenwood, take on these teams like Life. The problem that you're seeing right now, I think, is that you can't, these big games, right? You can't have a 25-0 game against Lindenwood if you're going to be competitive, especially when you start to look at other teams out west who just put up points so quickly and can get games out of hand. I think they are definitely a Cinderella team that you look at maybe in the playoffs can pull off the upsets depending on their matchup. But I think right now there's still a little bit of work to do, and there's some other teams that are coming out of the gate just so hot that it's been hard for Arkansas State to really gain that momentum they need to be successful.
So a couple other games on the schedule this past weekend as well, a couple other shutouts and near shutouts. Josh, what else you got for us?
Yeah, man, you cover Cal. Anytime there's a Cal game, you really hope that, oh man, we're going to see some competitive rugby. We're going to have it all like that. Cal basically was playing Madden on rookie mode this weekend and went down to the state of Arizona. They played Arizona, beat them 94-10, and then also beat Grand Canyon 84-0. Those are two quality teams, and to put up that kind of score after Cal hasn't been able to play a lot of games is impressive. One person I want to highlight, Max Schumacher, 63 points in a weekend. I mean, he's out here making conversions and tries. Against Grand Canyon, he had 4 tries. This man is definitely, you can't not call him a player of the year candidate, maybe even a player of the year favorite at this point. I mean, he's putting up more points than some teams. Cal again at this point is really dominating early on in the games, and they're getting them out of hand pretty quickly. And I think after a break, it's really impressive to see them take a trip like that and just have 2 really dominating performances. So fantastic work by them.
This feels like a Matt question, but any relation between that Schumacher and the Formula One driver Schumacher?
Well, I mean, if you convert the rate in which he's scoring points to the rate that a Formula One driver would be going, there's got to be a correlation there, but I don't think so. Classic Matt question there.
He told me to say it. I had to do it. So,
Yes.
But speaking of number ones, Formula One, we also had the number one team in action this weekend, Josh, with St. Mary's.
Yeah, St. Mary's and UCLA. UCLA, look, I may have been on the UCLA bandwagon early, and maybe it's going to pay off eventually. I'm playing the long game with UCLA. Harry Bennett is doing a lot over there, and they should have won this game. I know you watched, Zach. I think you'll agree with me. UCLA should have won this game. Being up 31-12 at a point, they were just doing an amazing job of capitalizing on the mistakes that St. Mary's was making. St. Mary's was not coming out of the gate strong. They kind of looked a little bit, off their normal game, off their normal rhythm, and UCLA was capitalizing on it. But like the Arizona game that we got to see a couple of weeks ago, second half, they were up, they had the momentum, and they just kind of lost it. St. Mary's has some amazing playmakers. Jonathan Hackett was just not going to let his team lose. All you had to do is have the forwards go follow Hackett and just know that he's going to get him the ball, and then if you get it back to him, you're going to end up scoring these 60-meter tries. He had a really great pick. He picked off UCLA pass and took that one 50 meters. That's St. Mary's way. Like it's amazing to me that a team that is coming off a really, really tough win over BYU, now getting into the situation where you're down against a good UCLA team, they came out of the gate and they just played their game. It's fascinating rugby to watch from St. Mary's. They work as a cohesive group so well. It's still really sad that UCLA wasn't able to pull this one off, but I think it says a lot, because now we're starting to see these cross matchups, and it's kind of helping us really understand the playing field.
Yeah, I think this is a definite trap game for St. Mary's, as you mentioned, coming off a game against a very physical BYU side. Probably maybe took UCLA a little bit lightly coming out, but all kudos to them for definitely responding in that second half and just putting their foot on the gas pedal and not looking back. So that's what a number one team in the country does. But as you said, this matchup, these two matchups specifically, really offered us a glimpse at those top teams, because you could kind of compare Arizona and UCLA. Played a very close matchup earlier this season. They're two very similar teams in terms of skill level. And you saw one get their doors absolutely blown off by Cal in Arizona. And then you have UCLA keeping it close, having a huge lead against St. Mary's in this one. What do you think this says about the top program, St. Mary's and Cal, or the two teams, that are kind of fighting for those spots, UCLA and Arizona? What's the number one storyline you think coming out of those two matchups?
I think for one, we have to give credit to UCLA. They're getting better. They've had these two tough second half collapses, but they're becoming a better team. And you look back at that preseason tournament where they played Cal, and it wasn't the result they wanted. It still wasn't a 60, plus point loss. They played Cal close, and you're looking at Cal right now, who is able to come into games and within the first 20 minutes is, basically ready to pack their bags and, put in the reserves. UCLA's got an opportunity here. They got a couple things they got to put together. Harry Bennett is doing an amazing job, I think, for his first year there. And I still think that matchup is going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a game to watch. But the thing with Cal right now that we got to talk about is that, they are just playing light years above the competition. And the team that's going to finally beat Cal is going to be the team that is able to just really focus on that defensive front and just try and keep the ball out of their hands. I really like this BYU matchup that we have coming up this week. I think BYU really kind of prides themselves on being a really great defensive team. Again, they did not let teams score on them throughout their season. That's going to be the key to beating Cal. Obviously, yes, you want to score more than the other team, but it's about having physical defense throughout the entire game and never giving them that 20-minute stretch where they're basically just running all over you.
So if Cal does blow the doors off of BYU this weekend in a definite circle on your calendars matchup for everybody to watch, does that make Cal the unquestioned number one team in your eyes?
I think you have to. To take the time, it sucks that they had their games canceled, some really good games, but, someone's got to be able to stop them. And until then, you're going to have to put them in that number one spot. Kudos to St. Mary's, but Cal right now is on another level. And if you compare it to some of the fall teams that we had, it doesn't compare right now. Cal needs to be the number one team in the country.
All right. Well, if you're not watching Cal BYU this weekend, I don't know what you're doing out there. Take it from us here at College Rugby Wrap Up. Josh Rescio, thanks so much for joining us. We'll hope to get you back in studio next week.
Yes, hope to be there.
Looking for your next vehicle? With Sheehy's Easy Search, choose from over 3,000 new and used vehicles. Shop, trade, or buy online or in store. We make it easy with our award-winning service.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street. All right, we're back, and that was cool. As we are seeing, maybe that gap is narrowing a little bit because St. Mary's had that tussle with UCLA after having a tough match against BYU, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think St. Mary, you may see a change in the rankings. Although Josh mentioned last week too, we had talked about how, St. Mary's had been playing these tough games, whereas Cal had kind of been coasting through their early schedule. Starting to see a bit of a shift in that, but this may end up benefiting St. Mary's in the long run, playing these tough matches against some pretty solid opponents. Yeah,
and it's exciting to see this kind of competition starting to unfold. Harry Bennett out in UCLA, they looked like they were going to go with the big upset, but St. Mary's in the end had too much. Colby, let's transition, because you're all geared up in your Iona College Gales outfit, because that was the other Gales we were just talking about, the real Gales. But you got some stuff about MLR and college guys, and specifically, let me guess, Iona guys in the MLR.
Yeah, I have to, Matt, and I am wearing the scrum cap because seemingly, while Iona players do contribute to winning, we are also seemingly prone to danger. As we've seen what happened to Connor Buckley and John Powers in recent weeks. Glad that they're okay. Glad that all is well. They seem to be on track to returning. You should see them next weekend. So I'm glad that they're okay, but I'm taking this precaution. I went to Iona. It seems like something is out to get the Gales. It seems like something is out to get us. Nonetheless, Rugby New York had a big win over Rugby ATL 34-31 in what was a rematch of the Eastern Conference semifinal of last year's MLR playoffs. And, Rugby New York were led by the likes of Dylan Fawcett, Sam Windsor, Ed Fideau, who all had good games. And Connor Buckley had maybe the play of the game with the between the legs backwards pass. And when I asked him about that, he said, F it, Ed's out there somewhere. I got to get it to him. So that was his mentality with that.
Colby, is that a little homage to Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill from Connor there?
I think that is.
It was a foul-mouthed homage, but nonetheless, an homage is still an homage. Or is it homage?
Homage.
Homage.
French.
Goodness. Pardon the French, ladies and gentlemen, as they say. Pardonnez-moi, mon français, was what Mr. Buckley should have followed that with. But, yeah, you know what? That made me want to vomit in the booth as doing the play-by-play, watching that pass. That was, I thought, ill-advised and crazy considering the tightness of the match. But we saw that across the league. What else you got for us in terms of your boys from Iona?
Yeah, we got to see John Powers make his MLR debut coming on and around the 70th minute for Rugby New York. And obviously, he didn't have too long of a time on the pitch. He left with that knock to the head that he suffered. But he did show and make a great tackle on that play that he got injured. That's what we expect from John Powers. He's one of the toughest kids out there. He's going to tackle. He's going to make plays on the defensive end. So I'm glad to know that he's okay, and I can't wait to see him out there again.
Yeah, we were very concerned up in the booth because they put him on the stretcher, and then I thought I was seeing things when I see him still in his scrum cap on the sidelines, like 10 minutes later, and then he's in the huddle high-fiving everybody after the game like nothing. He is one tough hombre, as they say.
I'm sure that's not what they wanted him to be doing at that point in time, but
well,
that's John Powers for you.
You saw another college star, Lepetti, up in Seattle's win over San Diego, going head-to-head against Ma'ananu, just one of the greatest players ever. And this is a kid that was the number 3 pick in the MLR draft, a steal for Seattle. And He was out of St. Mary's with Tim O'Brien's program, hardly had much of a COVID season, got drafted, and then was straight into Eagles camp to face the All Blacks in D.C. And here he is thriving in Seattle. Great try. He got knocked out and then was able to be interviewed as player of the match after the game. So tough kids, and very exciting to see these players getting some time and some reps, if you will, with the MLR. But you also got some 7 stuff going on?
Yeah, speaking of young kids, the PR7s held their open trials over this past weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. And of the players that were featured, Mike Morrow from Iona College is somebody that
was just Zach. Did we know it was going to be an Iona guy?
I was ready for it. I was preparing myself. I figured there's got to be other programs out there, but none.
I don't think there are.
None, at least none as quality as the Iona game.
Check the stats. One of the best players in UNA during his time. A lot of teams are going to want a piece of Mike Morrow. I think he's a player that, even after his college career ended, he stayed active, playing rugby, playing for clubs, playing for NIAC. And so I was told he had a really good showing in the PR7's open trials.
By his parents.
His parents weren't there.
Just kidding. I'm sure he's great. And where would you see him lining up? Where would you see him ending up?
He can play a little bit of everywhere. Fly half, fullback. He can play on the wing. He's got the pace, got the size, strength. Great passer. Great IQ for the game. Above all, I think that's his strongest trait, his IQ. So he's going to be a sought-after player for sure.
Excellent. And folks, just full disclosure, Colby is now working as an agent for all ex-Iona rugby players. So anything else, Colby, before we take a quick break and come back with Zach's women's rugby segment?
Definitely looking forward to next week's game between Dallas and New York. Aaron Gray going up against New York should be very interesting, and looking forward to that game.
And Aaron Gray, of course, gets the Drink Up Pod bump because he came on with you two on your show. So unfortunately, he's going to be up against that New York juggernaut and Ed Fido, the rolling piano, on the outside. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with more college rugby, this time the women's side with Colby and Zach.
Been blind since I was 4, and I've never seen a beer commercial or a beer label. None of that stuff influences me. I drink beer because of the taste, and my beer's Pabst Blue Ribbon. It has the taste and the flavor.
What do you think's on the label?
I think there's a naked woman riding on a unicorn, jumping over fire. Oh, that's good beer.
And we're back with Mr. Colby Marshall and Mr. Zach Lanning. Zach, you're on the hot seat right now because we have all eyes on you about what's going on in the women's game. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so we're starting to see a bit of a pickup in action here amongst the elite programs in the nation on the women's side. First off, I have to start with Lindenwood University, title holders in both 15s and 7s from last year, which is quite a feat. They're starting their title defense in both forms of rugby this weekend. They were playing at the Midnight Sevens tournament in Kansas City. They'll also next weekend host the NALA Sevens tournament before they get into a little bit of 15s ahead of the USA 15s national championships in mid-April. So they are definitely a program to keep an eye on, splitting between the 7s and 15s. It's got to be really tough for a program to dominate in both 15s and 7s, but they have done that so far last year, and there's no signs, or indications that they may not be able to do that again this year.
Midnight Sevens in Kansas City, that had to be freezing?
I think it's indoors. I believe it's an indoors tournament inside of a bubble or a dome. But tough to find any information in the website, and that last post was from 2018. So I can't really give you scores or anything, but they did enter 2 sides. I know that for a fact. And it was probably, I believe, an indoor tournament.
And I would guess that Iona stars were all over it, right? Colby?
Probably running, or they may have held them out just, for the sake of other programs to give them a little bit of a chance to compete.
Maybe have another program in college rugby. All right, what else you got?
Yeah, another team to mention, the second place team in both 7s and 15s last year would be Life University. They've been playing a few more games than Lindenwood so far this season, and they have continued their dominance of the state of Florida this weekend with a huge 85-0 win over University of Central Florida. Their JV team also beat Eckerd College, who's the D2 champ down in Florida, 19-0. But what's interesting to me, Matt, this week, looking into some of Life University's scores and such on their website, their schedule does not list the USA National Championships in mid-April, starting April 16th. You'll see other programs like Lindenwood and BYU, who we'll get to in a little bit, have that on their schedule. Life, as we know from our previous segments in the fall, participated in the NCR championships in 15s, really dominating those competitions, albeit with a younger, less experienced side. But I'm not sure if this means that there were some repercussions for that decision. There's differences obviously between NCR and the CRAA. So we'll have to keep an eye on whether or not Life, the second place team, as I mentioned from last year, and always a competitive side, is or is not competing in this year's CRAA USA Rugby 15s National Championships.
So we're going to have to keep our eye on Life as we know it.
Very nice. Yes, we will. But I imagine, Matt, Life finds a way.
That's the way life works.
Life can be so unpredictable.
We can just keep going on and on with this. The whole
life is good.
Yeah, life is good. Life is good. Oh, this is painful. Go ahead. What else you got for us?
Yeah, I'm not sure I should continue after that, but we'll go on to BYU, whose women's side continued their strong spring season campaign with an 89-5 win over Arizona State. So this past weekend, they went to Arizona and played both Arizona State and Arizona. Don't have scores for you yet from the Arizona matchup, but did dominate Arizona State. And they have a really full dance card for the rest of the spring heading into those national championships. They have a game pretty much every weekend against some solid opponents. So they're looking to really get a lot of experience under their belt after, they lost to both Life and Lindenwood in the fall. So they know exactly where they need to get as a program. And I think they're trying to play as much rugby in the meantime as possible. So look for them to be strong, competitors in that national championship playoffs at the end of April.
Anything else, Zach?
Just a final note, guys, something I wanted to include last week. We had to take out just some technical difficulties on my end, but we noted that Davenport women's team officially joining NIRA, or the National Intercollegiate Rugby Association, which is a huge significant step forward for both Davenport, signaling their intentions to become a varsity program, and for NIRA in their hashtag Sprint to 40, which is their quest to, accrue 40 women's programs from around the country that are, willing to become varsity NCAA sanctioned sports, to show the NCAA that women's rugby has the numbers to go from an emerging sport, which they are currently, to a full-fledged NCAA varsity sport.
So is this number 29 or number 30?
I believe this is number 28, Matt, 28. With the Davenport, and then Princeton women's side will be joining in the fall. So that'll be 28 teams, which is they're close to their goal of 40. And Davenport, they're getting a very quality side, and Davenport had a strong fall season, and they'll be joining their D2 bracket.
All right, fellas, I think we're at that point for final thoughts. Colby?
Yeah, looking forward to the matches that are to come in the MLR, and prayers up to Mike Maurer. I'm hoping that he gets elected for the PR7s league.
What a teammate. What an Iona ambassador for Iona, Colby Marshall. Zach?
Yeah, Colby's hyping everybody else up, but look at him. He's got the scrum cap, the jersey. He looks like he is in perfect physical condition. He's ready to get out there for the PR7s himself. I think there should be teams making calls to Colby, step back out of the broadcast booth and back onto the pitch. He seems ready to go.
And how about one Will Burke, starting for the Rugby ATL Rattlers at prop. He's not hiding on the wing like you Iona guys do. He's right front and center in the front row. Will Burke, University at Buffalo. How you doing? Go Tubas. On that note, fellas, we are out of time. I want to thank Mr. Zach Lanning, Mr. Colby Marshall, Mr. Josh Rescio, and thank you for tuning in. Please sign up for our weekly newsletter. Please press that subscribe button on your YouTube channel, and check out our other segments, including The Rugby Odds with John Bradshaw, Layfield, Gift Bailu, and Nate Osborne, and our Major League Rugby Highlights preview show. And please, please, please sign up for our Rugby Wrap Up American Red Cross Blood Donor Team.